So I watched Mortal Kombat, which I would never have watched had we not said that we were going to talk about it for this show. To the point where I was nervous that I was going to mess up my HBO algorithms. You know? Like, it's like, please don't recommend a million Mortal Kombats to me.
There's not a million Mortal Kombats, but like I'd be very surprised if one movie screwed up your HBO algorithm.
I know. I'm messing. Tell me your thoughts. Did you find it to be an enjoyable movie? Let's just start with like the superficial.
Superficially, I enjoyed the movie, but I acknowledged that it would likely disappoint me and or be very like corny, and knowing that going in, I think made me feel a little bit better. But surprisingly, it like not disappointed but frustrated me even more so in how it faltered beyond my expectations. It's a mixed bag, I should say. If you're listening to this, like, I had a good time watching it, but oh boy, am I going to criticize the fuck out of it while I'm watching it and say, you're going to freeze blood and turn it into a knife here, but then you're going to not use this level background as actual, like, part of your fight here? Come on, folks. Like, anyway, what did you think, Ryan? Did you enjoy watching this movie? Did you watch the original Mortal Kombat movie from, like, the 90s?
I have not seen the original. I did not enjoy the movie. I think I went in with... I tried to go into this movie blind, right? I've mentioned before, I don't play a lot of fighting games. I have played Mortal Kombat before. I never owned a Mortal Kombat, though, right? I didn't expect this movie to be a fighting movie, which is like the dumbest thing that I could possibly say, but it's true. I tried to like blank slate my mind and just like, you know, let's try to be completely non-judgmental, and accept this movie for what it is, and then analyze it from there. I was really surprised at how contrived I found some of the fighting scenes just breaking out constantly. It feels contrived.
Oh my god!
Despite the fact that like there is this like plot that you know, the plot is so
that
thin.
Literally facilitates a tournament of fighting.
Exactly, and how else could you have that movie? Like, right, like Rocky's always in tournaments, so he's always training and fighting and blah blah. But the tournament itself seems so silly. Like, I don't know what the stakes of the movie are. We have to defeat, like, we cannot allow the prophecy to come true, is this idea. And if like Earth realm people were to be victorious, then, you know, the non-Earth realm people can rule the kingdom forever. And it's like, what does this mean? You're not giving me any of what I would consider to be like important details that I would need to follow. I don't understand why I should be rooting for one side or the other. I don't know what the repercussions of ruling the kingdom will be. So it's just an excuse for these combat scenes. That said, was the combat good? I don't know. I'm not a combat engineer or critic, but sure, you know, I mean, I wasn't unimpressed. I thought it's cool that there are superpowers, but it kind of felt just like superhero combat movie type of thing. What I really
But did you, just as a regular viewer, like the fighting? Not as wondering, like, in the expertise level, are they actually executing? Like, did you enjoy the fight scenes? Or were you like, meh, I've seen it better in a Bruce Lee movie or something like that?
I don't really watch fighting. I don't like contact sports. I don't watch contact sports. I don't like to watch acts of violence, you know. I watched The King, which is on Netflix today, and I remarked that I found the combat scenes of the battle to be very good, but it was like from I was analyzing the cinematography, you know, and rather than like the execution, or I don't get the thrill of like, oh, this guy's getting punched, this is exciting. That doesn't ring for me. The thing about the movie that I found to be the most corny, or like really what I would say made it a bad movie, is like the very obvious like catchphrases that they were just slipping in.
I'm so glad you identified that as somebody who went in fucking blind as a bat to like the series or whatever, like everything, and you're identifying the exact thing that like is number one what drove me crazy, of just like Fatality. I'm Liu Kang. I'm Kung Lao. Like all these fucking Saturday morning cartoon ass intros, and it's like, guys, I know this is like a goofy like video game, and we're trying, but why? Why do we have to do these like shitty call out? Or no, the call outs are not shitty. Let me pull back and say that the call outs are good and they can be done well. And oddly enough, Paul W.S. Anderson, the man who made 7 or so Resident Evil films and handled that very interestingly, and then decided to go ahead and interestingly handle Monster Hunter. He's the one that made the good Mortal Kombat movie. This to me is not the good Mortal Kombat movie. It's an attempt, and if anything, it's almost like the Mortal Kombat movie that has a silver spoon in its mouth, because it almost knows it's getting a sequel. Like, it sequel baits super hard at the end. I don't know if you caught that. And also, sorry listeners, like, minor spoiler, they tease a character, through a poster at the end of the film. Obviously, this is a very well-known character that you would recognize from like the original movie, but they were trying to, I guess, save their payload for the next one.
I really like that you brought that up, because I'm not familiar with that character. I can't even remember who it was, but I remember seeing the poster and being like, oh, I guess they're sequel baiting, right? And that's exactly how I felt about the catchphrases. There were many catchphrases that I was not familiar with, but the way that they were uttered just screamed like, yep, this is what this person would say at the end of a combat that they,
Yeah, a character is very clearly framed to be center frame, and then for some reason they have enough pause time in the combat to just clearly say this thing, give it breath for the audience to like cheer, and then it goes to something else.
Right, and this is the main problem that I have with the movie. The main reason that I have this problem with the movie is because it's not standing on its own legs, right? I would want anybody who's interested in like martial arts movies but not interested in video games to be able to watch this and fully enjoy it. But they're living for the fan base, and they think that they have a duty to serve the fan base who are familiar with these catchphrases, and they're afraid of the backlash of people being like, he didn't even say get over here, are you kidding me, like what kind of Mortal Kombat movie is this? But that is such a superficial way of looking at the movie. What you're wanting is, you're just wanting the game. Like the dialogue that you need in video games has to be very, very limited, and it's not like in the original Mortal Kombat. I don't think it was very plot centric, so you just have to give these kinds of catchphrases as a way of characterizing the people. But in a movie, it's not just characterization, it's also plot. So when people are saying things that feel out of character or out of sync with the rest of what's going on in that scene, or with that character's character development, it's sloppy. They're just trying to throw this thing on top and serve the people who are like the diehard Mortal Kombat fans who just want more Mortal Kombat in every form, rather than wanting something that breaks the boundaries of what we might think of as Mortal Kombat. And I have one more thing that I think you'll want to piggyback on. The main character was a new character that they introduced, correct?
Oh my god, I fucking hated that so much.
I know you do, but I don't. And this is why, because they can add this character to future Mortal Kombat games, and using a new character is a reason for telling the story that they need to be telling, right? They didn't want to use a pre-existing character, and I think that what they're doing is they're trying to give it something fresh, a new flavor, and justify the storytelling. So I actually thought that was a good direction, and we get that person's family, we get their whole situation. And I wanted more of that kind of, I wanted them to lean into that freshness, and I think that they were trying to do both keep it fresh and also give people what they wanted, and that's where there's disharmony in the script. What do you think?
Now that's interesting. I'm really glad we don't agree on that last point. Like, because that's it's something that if he were to get brought into the Mortal Kombat actual video game series, that's an interesting bag of worms, but I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to it, I guess. Like, I'm sure it'll be less so if they were to do that. I think that's kind of the redeeming quality, right? I'm not really into the whole, like, here's my Mortal Kombat OC, he uses tonfas and has armor that's kinetic or something. Like, I found that to be very weird, and I was, if anything, one of the hardcore Mortal Kombat people going in being like, yeah, give me fucking Mortal Kombat. But I think it was less so of the fanboy, like, I just want calls to Mortal Kombat, and it was more like what you're talking about. I want something to transcend. I want something to be good on its own and then be even better because it has Mortal Kombat, like, reinforcing it. And so that's where I highly recommend that you actually watch the original Mortal Kombat movie, because I wanted to just start snapping my fingers like I was in a fucking hipster coffee shop when you were like going off on like the movie being about the combat and being about the plot and being fucking readable, because the original Mortal Kombat movie is legitimately made to be Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon, but they subbed in Mortal Kombat characters. So like you have like the cast of 4 heroes, they go off on a boat to an ancient island that's being hosted by Shang Tsung. That's where the Mortal Kombat tournament is being held. There's an actual fighting tournament, and it's just like Enter the Dragon. Everybody actually has fights. You can see the fights. There's no goofy fucking superpowers like Kano's laser eye. Sure, Kano's face is metal, and you're like, ooh, it's a metal cyborg human in a 90s movie? That honestly is way better to me than fucking Magic Eye Kano spouting, Kano wins, just because like a writer got a hard on. Like, I don't know, like Kano never, I don't even think Kano ever says Kano wins in the first movie, and I honestly like that Kano more. He is like so despicable, very good villain, and also like the thing, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little ranty now, but the last part of my rant will be with the fucking Mortal Kombat, like, birthmarks, the cutie marks from, like, My Little Pony made its way into goddamn Mortal Kombat. So, like, one, why? Okay, right, so the cutie marks, the Mortal Kombat marks were not in that first movie, not in the Enter the Dragon style actual fighting movie where actual fighting happens.
Really quick, the idea is that if you have this, everybody who is going to be in the, like, selected for the Mortal Kombat competition.
A chosen one.
Yes, the chosen one will have these marks, and anybody who kills one of the people who is one of the chosen ones will then get the mark on them.
Right, and the mark is the logo for the Mortal Kombat video game. Of course, you got to tie it into the IP at all times. I just hated that so much, and almost I feel like Sonya was a weaker female character or female representation in this movie than in the first movie. I don't know though. I'm a guy, so I really can't tell. But like, I remember Sonya in the first movie being like more of a badass, and in this movie they were like, we need to make her a badass by like saying she won't kill someone and then deciding to kill someone, and it's like
character growth. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, character development. Anyway, I actually like the thing I'd really like to center in on at like the core of your problem and my problem right now is like, we like, to a degree, we both wanted a fighting movie, like a martial arts movie, right? And the original Mortal Kombat gave that to us because it was Enter the Dragon with Mortal Kombat characters. This movie starts off and seemingly becomes the story of 2 samurai.
I was going to say, it opens in feudal Japan, which I was like, so, and there wasn't a lot of fighting, like at the very, very opening, and there was, and the fighting that was extant was like sword fighting, I believe. So, and when I saw that the rest of the movie was martial arts, I almost felt like it was kind of like a red herring. Like I would have been more happy with like a feudal Japan type movie, a samurai adventure story or something like that. I don't know. For some reason, I feel like that would have had more depth, or maybe it just piqued my interest.
It seems like there's a second movie hidden within this movie. And if that is some shit that's happening where they're like, oh, movie 2 is actually going to like give you the next 50% of the feudal Japan movie, like, I'll be kind of pissed off at that. But anyway, like, the way this movie presents itself, and especially how it's marketed, it's presenting itself to be the story, the saga of Sub-Zero and Scorpion. Obviously, these are the characters that sell the most in the IP. They're the mascots. And sure, like, you can market those characters, but don't you're basically saying like, hey, this is our movie, and it wasn't. Like, that's why the OC felt so jarring to me. I felt like I got bait and switched. Like, Scorpion dies in the first 10 minutes, and then suddenly we're in modern day. Scorpion doesn't show up till the last fucking 10 minutes, and you're like, I thought the movie was about these 2 guys. So why did I dick around with this? And obviously there's a bigger, like, Earth, if Earth doesn't win Mortal Kombat, Earth Realm gets taken over. There's that story going on, but I don't think Sub-Zero and Scorpion are really tying into that. Anyway, the salient point to this is, give us the actual Sub-Zero Scorpion movie just alone, like that would have been pretty decent. Or actually, I would have maybe just liked that even better as a jumping off point if I had just had a movie of Sub-Zero and Scorpion, like the start of their feud with the death of the family and the retaliation, and then maybe seeing Scorpion train in hell until he gets, you know, power to like come back while Sub-Zero is like fucking over other people. And like that would have been like pretty cool, would have been really different. You know, feudal Japan samurai movie that's like really in style, like, you know, as of late.
This movie is a simulacrum, I believe.
Ooh, what's that?
A simulacrum is it's an abstraction of an abstraction, right? So
shit, okay.
The quintessential example is fiat currency, which is like the paper-based currency that we have, right? So the idea is like bartering, I believe, is like the initial level where like I'm giving you a chicken for a shoe, right? Like we're directly exchanging something. Then we have like the next level of abstraction is like gold or silver-based currency, where we're using this metal that is interchangeable. You know, like it stands for something, right? It's almost symbolic, but it's also like it's related to its value because it's a precious metal, so it's something that is valuable in and of itself. But then we have or it's culturally significant. Then we have like paper currency, which actually has no value. It's not rare. It's like being printed, and it's still, so it stands for it. You know, it replaced the gold, which replaced the bartering. So, you know, it's an abstraction of an abstraction. I think that the original Mortal Kombat game, like it was clearly, you know, Street Fighter preceded it and was, you know, basically the gory Street Fighter, you know, to be a little reductive about it. But I believe that the developers of Mortal Kombat, and please correct me if you know more about this than me, I believe that the Mortal Kombat developers like wanted Street Fighter, but they wanted it to be like stylized like a martial arts movie. So like the character animations and those kinds of things were directly taken from that medium. And you're saying that the movie that came out in the 90s was based on a specific martial arts movie, but it's also based on the game, so it's an right? So it's an abstraction of an abstraction. So it's a movie, it's a game based on a movie. So the movie is the original content. Then they're basing a game on it, which is Mortal Kombat, and then you have a movie that's based on the game, which is based on a movie. And that's just like you're going to have holes, right? Like there's no way to do that perfectly because it's so watered down at that point.
That's very interesting. I guess at that point, it would just serve us better to try and push the bounds or experiment with what ingredients are being used when, like, abstracting or recreating these things rather than going for the abstraction of the abstraction of the abstraction. It's almost like, well, this actually doesn't fit well nowadays, but when you had a VHS tape and you would, like, record, you know, cartoons or a movie on it, and then you'd record over that tape, you'd record over it, and eventually you're seeing an episode from The Simpsons like 8 months ago coming up in the middle of your recording of the Gremlins. Right.
In a different bonus bite that's either going to come out before or after this, we talk about board games, right? And Demio is a really good example of a simulacrum as well, because D&D itself is an abstraction, right? The physical tabletop board game, you're pretending to be these characters, you're pretending to be an elf or whatever, right? And then so that's an abstraction, and then we abstract on the abstraction by like simulating the dice rolling of the board game. And that's, so going back to that dice rolling thing that we previously talked about, that's part of the reason why I think that mechanic is failing, and we need to stop borrowing from things that we already are familiar with. We have to kind of reinvent the wheel when we're going to enter a new medium, whether that's a movie or a game or, you know, VR or whatever that space is. We can't keep borrowing on things that were successful in an earlier medium.